Hey, this is Legendary Beats here, and today we're answering a fan question on compression or EQ before or after recording your vocals. This episode has been brought to you by legendarybeatsonline.com. Alright, so the question that we got today was from Heather Elizabeth Song. I'm gonna read out her question. Here it goes. I have a question. Whenever I belt out the high notes, I always seem to peak during recordings. Are there any good limiters for FL5 or Reaper to stop this? Would setting them up during recordings deaden the life of the vocals? Turning the gain down during the recording sounds so messy. Are there any other options in a situation where your vocals go from quiet to loud quickly? Now that's a very great question, Heather. Actually, I did some research on you. I checked out some of your music and you have a beautiful voice. I love what you're doing. I didn't check your YouTube page that much. I checked your Facebook page, your fan page, and the two tracks that I heard was very nice and very clean. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. And if you have any more questions, just let me know. Hopefully I can answer your question today. So in regards to your question, I always suggest that artists, when they record, just from my personal opinion, when you record, to record your vocals raw. Because when you add compression or EQ during the recording or prior to the recording, what you're doing is you are already taking out portions of that vocal, the quality of the vocal. You're already taking out the dynamic of the vocal, and you're taking out the natural sound of the vocal. So let's say if you're taking out, if you EQ it and while recording, you take out some of the low end, or you take out some of the high end. Realize that after you record, when it gets to the sound engineer, you go to mix that vocal, you can't recreate the low end and you can't recreate the high end if you need to add that in because the mix is demanding that. So I would say that it's best to have the sound as natural as possible. That way you can always dim it down in the EQ. You can always take out some of the highs, take out the lows, or you could you could boost up some of the lows and boost up some of the highs. You can't do that if you take out those portions of the sound. Now, as far as compression is concerned, compression is kind of the same way. You don't want to flatten out the sound while you're recording, especially if you don't really understand the dynamics of your vocal, or especially if you're not the sound engineer and know exactly what to look for when you add compression to things. So I would say this, that if you do have a preamp, or if you have a microphone that has a preamp installed, I think there's a few that have that. What it does is it compresses your vocal when it passes a certain dB level. So once it passes that dB level, it starts to compress. By how much, all depends on what you set it. Now when it does that, realize that it could flatten out your vocal. It can make your vocal sound nasally. It could do a lot of things to your vocal, warp it up a little bit. And if you don't know or understand your own voice, then that may be a problem, especially when the vocals get to the sound engineer. I mean, a good mix, or mixing, I should say, can't fix a bad recording. So ultimately, when you do a lot of those edits prior to recording, it kind of destroys your vocal, which gives you a bad recording ultimately. A good guy to check out on YouTube is, the name is Recording Revolution. He goes into a lot of things as far as recording your vocals yourself using different types of mics, non-expensive route. Also mixing your own sounds and your own recordings. He goes into a lot of detail on that, and he talks a lot about that as well. So today what I did for you, Heather, is that I did a little recording. I'm not the best singer. I'm definitely not as good as you. But what I did was I recorded a vocal in FL Studio. I also created a video on recording vocals in FL Studio. I'll link it here. And well, what I did here is that I recorded the vocal, and I will show you how to use the compressor and how the compressor actually works as far as your situation, where you would sing soft and then you would hit that loud high key. Another thing, before I get into that, what I would like to bring up is that the idea of working the mic has been lost as far as artistry goes in most recent years. Now, what working the mic is, it's relating to back in the day when artists didn't have all these technology to be able to alter the vocals after recording. Now, when a singer had a big voice, where they hit that high note from previously singing softer, they had to move back from the mic in order to compensate, or in order to get rid of that loud hit to the mic. And when you're pulling back, it pulls back the sound a little bit. So even though I raise my voice, I sound normal. When I come back to normal, I sound normal. So as I raise my voice, I pull back, and as I come back to normal, I'm using my normal voice. It doesn't sound too much of a difference. So it keeps it leveled, if that makes sense. I hope you understand that. So working the mic is very important. So if you know that in the song, emotionally, or it's scripted, that you have to hit that high note, you should learn how to pull back a little bit and hear it in your headphones, hear how your voice is reacting to that, and hear how it sounds, so that way you know that when you're pulling back and you're raising your voice, at least it still sounds leveled, as if you are still right here talking normal. And as you can see, as I just did that, you can hear that as I raise my voice and pull back, it compensates for, the higher voice, and it still remains leveled. But if I raise my voice right here, you can see that it's peaking. So that's what it's doing. So right now we're going to use the compressor and try to see if I could show you exactly how to use the compressor. This of course is going to be different for your voice. You would have to use a compressor and fix it for your voice specifically and mess with it. So let's just start off. As I said, don't laugh at my recording. I'm not a good singer, not a singer at all, but I just did this for you specifically, Heather. All right, and whoever else this may help. So check this out. Alright, so ultimately I'm peaking. The reason why it's not hitting past 0 dB is because of how my audio interface is set up. I raise it all the way to the highest, but it still limits it a little bit. So as you can see, while it's playing, it's hitting that 0 dB. It's very high, and it's jumping up and down. The main vocal is actually, the actual level of the vocal is between 10 dB, is between 9 dB and 12 dB, negative 9 dB and negative 12 dB. So you can look at it here. So you can see that it's jumping up and down. Once it hits that high note, it peaks. It jumps all the way up to 0 or negative 1 dB. So with the compression, let's see how it sounds with the compression, or see what happens with the compression. As you can see, it's a little bit more controlled. Now, of course, it's not perfect. You have to mess with it a little bit. But let me open up the compressor and help you understand how to use it. So for these settings, what I did was I used a threshold. I set it to negative 12 dB. Now the threshold is when you want the compressor to kick. So anything above negative 12 dB is going to be compressed. That's where it triggers the compression. So the ratio in relation to the threshold is how the 3 number, or this number here, represents how many dB goes in and how many is returned. So for every 3 dB above negative 12.7 that comes in, only 1 is returned. So what's going on here is that you could hear the compression working as I turn it on and off. Yeah, so that's how that works. So as I said before, the threshold here is the setting on when you want the compressor to be triggered. So for us, we see that it was near negative 12 dB was the normal frequency, the normal dB for the overall vocal. So anything above negative 12 dB you want to be compressed. The ratio in correlation to the threshold is every 3 dB that go in, only 1 is returned. And you can mess with this as needed. But you don't want to add too much compression, because if you add too much compression, it could flatten out your vocal. So let's try to create this together, or let me just recreate this for you while you're looking. Da 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 da. Da 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 Okay, so as you can see live, that it started to compress the vocal and it sounded a little bit more leveled. Now, there's something called gain. Now, this gain right here is the makeup gain, where for the dBs that you limited by or you compressed by, this regains that, so at least you get regain that gain. The issue with this is that, you know, some people use it, some people don't. You would have to mess with it to see what works for you. It depends on how you go about mixing, because ultimately I could leave the vocals like this and mix around that, and then just master the track at the end. When I master the track, once everything sounds good with this, per se, I was gonna do that on top of an instrumental. I could always mix low, and then at the end, you know, in the master track, I could ultimately, quote unquote, raise everything. Of course, that's not exactly everything that mixing is, but ultimately that's kind of the not the goal, but that's what will happen. So ultimately, these two things are what's going to help you out while you're not while you're recording, but after you record your vocal. You can add this preset while you're recording your vocal, but as I told you before, if you don't know your voice very well, it could be worse off. But yeah, I hope this video helped you out. If you do have any more questions, be sure to comment them below or inbox me. You can inbox me here on YouTube, or you can inbox me on my Facebook fan page at facebook.com/legendarybeats. And if this video has helped you or anybody else, please like, comment, and subscribe to this, so I know that it's helping you guys out and I can continue doing this. I'm doing this for free, and I love giving out this information because it's been helping me out as well, learn and grow in my craft as a producer and helping other artists. So thanks so much. See you guys in the next video. I'm Legendary Beats, and I'm out. Peace.